Nun Gimel 53. We're going to pick up on that on days and days. At the Mishnah. Okay, so we've been analyzing the different forms of how Bezdin would administer a death penalty. So we spoke about skila, stoning, about the streifa, the burn, the saya for hereg, the sword, and now we're going to analyze how Bezdin used to perform the isa of strangulation. So the Mishnah says mitzvahs hanachnakim. Hanachnakin, how did it work? How did they do chanek? Hayamashakin also bezevel arak osov. So same thing as we had previously, that they would put him into some kind of manure or some material up to his knees so that he wouldn't be moving around when this would happen. V'nosein sudar kashalatoch haracha v'karechat savaros. So that's similar to what we had. We spoke about this as one version in the Mishnah yesterday about the how they would open the mouth of the person for streifa. So what would they put a hard inside a soft one? We spoke about this yesterday, that the hard one is necessary in the mouth to form the skin. Actually cause damage to the neck of the person. Inside the soft one, and you put it around the neck. Zem Moshe Chetzel. So each of the 8 in the opposite directions. Until his soul goes. So that is the of strangulation. Taner Abanan. So the pasuk is going to analyze. The Gemara is going to analyze the pasuk in Vayikra, which says as follows: the ish. So this is the classic source for adultery. It's adultery with the wife of another man. That just performed adultery with the wife of your this. Analyze this pasuk word by word. Taner Rabbanan, ish is prat lekatan. It's talking about a man, not a katan. So katan who would perform an act with would not be a case of eshes ish min Torah. Eshes ish. So the pasuk said that he performed adultery with and prat leishes katan. This means Rashi explains to mean that this this demonstrates that there is no kiddushin by a katan. And if someone were to have a relationship with that woman, that's not considered an eshes. The pasuk says eshes reyehu, that it says asher yanaf is eshes reyehu. So this comes, someone has a relationship with someone who is married to someone who's not reyehu, which was guy. So if a Jewish woman married a Goyish Gentile man, and then subsequently someone had a relationship with that woman, that she is not considered an eshes ish because she's married not eshes Jew. Okay, most you must the pasuk toward the end says most you must anoi fano fs. The Gemara says bechenek that you provide of strangulation. Now the Gemara says he says it's chenek, but how do you know? Maybe it's one of the. Like, how do you know? So we say Amr kol makom shenemer misa b'Torah stam ein haTorah shalom moshe alel elo hakol alel. Yoshia says, anytime it says you cannot give that person more, you have to give them the lightest misa, because if the Torah doesn't designate a harsher misa, doesn't say, for example, skila or streifa, so all you can apply when the Torah just says to kill her, you have to kill him or her with the misa that is the lightest. And so what is the lightest misa? We know that, at least according to Rabbanan, we'll get into that, is the least chamor case of Misa, and that's why Rabbi Yoshi says that's how you know that that's what the Noef and the Noefes, the adulterers, get. Rabbi Yonasan says, Lo mipnei sheikala, that the reason that we give chenek is not because chenek is the most kal. We'll see why he says that in a minute. Ella, rather, what's the reason that chenek applies in the case of adultery? Kol misa hamur b'torah stam eina ela chenek. Because anytime, and we encountered this rule before, anytime that the Torah does not specify specifically what the misa is, then it's the misa of strangulation. How do we know that? So Rabbi Omer had Rabbi Yonasan that nemar misa b'dei shemayim and nemar misa b'dei adam, that the concept of the word misa applies when the Ribono Shel Olam brings about the death of someone, and it also applies the word misa when it is applied by Bezdin. Ma misa amur b'dei shemayim misa shein bo roshem. So just like when there's misa b'dei shemayim, and a person gets, just dies, so there's no physical impact or there's nothing that you see physically on the body. So therefore, too, when it says misa by a person and it doesn't specify otherwise, it means the misa that has no roshim. What would that be? That would be strangulation. Now the Gemara asks, well, because we just spent time yesterday talking about the fact that Sreifa is the lead gets poured in the mouth so that there should be only death from the inside and no recognizable impact on the outside. So maybe you should say that should be the punishment anytime the Torah doesn't specify. So the Gemara says it can't be Sreifa. Why? Because remember, what are we trying to figure out here? We're trying to figure out the misa of a noif and noefes, adulterers, right? And we say it's chenek. Now we say, well, maybe it should be Sreifa because that's another case where the death is not recognizable. The problem is we know that the Torah took out a bas kohen from the ordinary category of someone who is an adulterer and said a bas kohen gets something worse. What do they get? They get Sreifa. So therefore, a regular adulterer must be that they don't get Sreifa, and therefore. So what we're learning out basically is that in order, according to the way Rebbe explains to Yonasan, anytime the Torah doesn't specify the misa, it's chenek. Why? Because we have misa b'dei shemayim and misa b'dei adam, and it has to be a misa that is not recognizable in the body. So that leaves us two choices: Sreifa or chenek. We say it can't be Sreifa because we know that a regular adulterer, which is the pasuk we're darshaning, it has a better punishment than a bas kohen. A bas kohen gets Sreifa, so there must be that the simplest punishment and the one that annoys Bishlam Rabbi Yonasan Kiddukam Farish Rabbi Taima. Hello, Yoshia. Mimai de Ika Chenek Ba'olam. So he says, so Rabbi Yoshia basically said we need to give the lightest misa, right? So the question is, how do you even know that there is a misa of chenek? Why? Because the Torah specifies skila, sreifa, and are referenced. But it never references chenek, it never references strangulation. So if your only basis of saying what should we do when the Torah doesn't otherwise specify the punishment, so if the Torah only specifies stoning, burning, and sword, so ema sayif, I would tell you there should be sayif. In other words, why if all we're saying is it's the lightest punishment, then it should be sword because we don't know about chenek. Rabba says Abra Misa's Gemara Gemiri Lahu. The fact that there are four Misas, Skilos, Reifa, Herek, V'chenek, is a halacha l'Moshe Misinai. And then once we're left with the fact that there's all four, and Rashi explains that once there's all four, and we know that there's chenek, and we know that the Torah didn't specify chenek for anyone, so it can't be that chenek is chamor, because otherwise if it was chamor, the Torah would have to specify. So from the fact that the Torah never specifies chenek, but yet we know it exists from a halacha l'Moshe Misinai, it must mean that chenek is the lightest of the punishments, and therefore, anytime the Torah doesn't specify, according to Rabbi Yoshia, you cannot give penalties. You have to give the lightest penalty. Hence, the rule the Torah doesn't specify that we give the punishment. Now, Rabbi Yonasan said to Rabbi Yoshia, "Lo mipnei she." That's chenek. So Rabbi Yonasan said, no, that's not the reason. Why did he say that? Reb Shimon Rabbanan. So if we remember, Reb Shimon in our Mishnah held that chenek was more swords. With Reb Yoshia about the reason we always give chenek is because it's the least strict, it's the least chamor, because according to Reb Shimon, and that's how Reb Yonason holds as well, it's not the least chamor. The least chamor would be sayef. So there must be a different reason. Hence, we rely on the comparison between Misa B'dei Shemayim and Misa B'dei Adam. Okay, Amalei Reb Zeir le'Abaya Sharon Iskalin the Loichsiv B'hu Skila the Gemiri Me'ov Me'adoni B'mai Gamri the most Yumsu Gamri of the man Bam Gamri. Okay, so long reading there, but this is actually going to become relevant in the next Mishnah. But we're getting a little bit of a preview here. So he says as follows, that the people who receive skila fall into two categories. Those where it says skila expressly, and those where it does not expressly say skila, but it's learned out. In most cases, it's learned out from Ov V'Yadoni. Ov V'Yadoni were forms of, what do they call it, necromancy or something like that, like people who speak with the dead, commune with the dead. That's usher, and by Ov V'Yadoni, it is written specifically that they get skila, right? And so what happens is as follows: in Ov V'Yadoni, it's written most you must, and it's written demei and bum. And now we have certain cases that skila is written expressly, but where it's not written expressly, those categories also have the words most you must and demei and bum. So we're saying that in any case that skila is not written specifically, Yadoni. And what Reb Zeira is asking Abaya is, well, and all of those cases have most you must and demei and bum. Which one is the Gzer Shava that tells you that they have the punishment of skila? So the Gemara says, Amrlei, he said back to him, demei and bum gamri. They learn from the fact that in one case it says demei and bum, in the other, that's how we learn it out. The most yumsu gamri demayim lamali. He says because it must be learning out from demayim bum. What would you otherwise do? Gamri, you're going to say we learn it from demayim. Demayim bum is because otherwise, what would you do with demayim? That proves. So we say, because no, most yumas we have a use for, because the sanya, like we learned in the Brisa, Rotzeachu, the pasuk says that the it's talking about when someone hits someone with intention that he gets killed, he's a rotzeach. So it says most yumas, it's a double language, and the he says, I only know that you can give, that is specified for that. But what happens if we cannot give that punishment and we want to give a different punishment? Let's say a guy is escaping on a ship, and so you can't give him, let's say he's chayav sreifa, you can't give him sreifa, but you have your gun and you shoot at him on the ship, or your arrow, or whatever it is, and you're going to get him on the ship. So you're not giving him the proper misa, but since it says most you must, so if we can give him the misa that we're supposed to give him, then yes. If not, you must, you're going to give him the misa that is not the one specified. So you see that the word most you must has a limud to be learned, and therefore it must be that the extra word that we learn out that the misa is with skila in cases where it's not specified, it must be from the words the mayhem bum. Okay, so the Gemara says, I'm sorry, Tamalom, most yumas hamakam mikamakam. Okay, so Amarle, Rav Acham Hidifti L'Ravina, the E b'mos yumasu gamri maika kashale. So he's saying as follows, and it's not entirely clear to me, and it seems in some of them, unfortunately, not entirely clear either, exactly what the Gemara means here, but it seems to be saying as follows, that when Reb Zeira asked the question, which one from, he seemed to have a problem, that there was some kind of problem. He wasn't just asking which way is it. So it seemed, and then he was, on earth, he was pleased with the outcome when you said you learned it from the Mayambam. So it's clear somehow that Reb Zeira had a problem with learning it out from Mos Yumasu. So the Gemara is going to ask, what was Reb Zeira's problem from learning it out from Mos Yumas that was solved by learning it out from the Mayambam? Okay, so the Gemara is going to put forth a couple of choices and eventually come third answer, which is going to be the reason that Reb Zera was concerned about learning it from Mos Yumas. Ilema, if you're going to say Eishes Ish Kakashale, that Reb Zera had a problem with learning out from Ovi Adoni to other cases of Misa to say it's Skila. If it's learned from Mos Yumas, he has a problem with the psukim by Eishes Ish. Why? Because Lemesi v'lemigmar Mos Yumas me Ovi Adoni Malahalim Beskila Avkam Beskila. So he says as follows: because if you're learning out from us, so then the pasuk that's written by Noah and Noephis, the one we just dealt with, adultery, the pasuk does not say a misa, and we said that therefore it means chenek, it means strangulation. It doesn't say a misa. It has the words Mos Yumas, and if we know that Mos Yumas you can learn from Ovi Adoni that it's chayav skila, so then don't say it doesn't say, it does say. It says Mos Yumas, which means skila based on the Gzera Shava. So the Gemara, and maybe that would be Reb Zera's problem. If you learn out from Ovi Adoni from Mos Yumas, is then you should say that adultery should be skila, not chenek. So the Gemara says no, because I would know not to learn it out from there. So similar logic to what we said before about Sreifa. He's saying as follows: that once I know that the Torah took the punishment of Arusa, serious punishment, and gave it skila, so it took it out of the punishment of chenek, right? So now if you're telling me every case of adultery is chenek because I would learn it from Ovi Adoni, if you tell me that every case of adultery is skila because I learned out from most punishment you're giving to an arusa over a nesua, so we would know that Eishes Ish can't be skila, so that couldn't be what's bothering a Reb Zera. So we say, okay, no, rather Reb Zera is bothered. If you learn it out from Mos Yumas, he has a problem with our halacha of someone who hits his father or mother, because so he says as follows. He says, why not learn that someone who hits his father or mother, where it's written Mos Yumas, that they would in fact get skila, and yet we say that it gets hereg. So the Gemara says, he says no. Even he says that's not a problem, because if you're telling me that the problem with learning it out from Mos Yumas is the fact that the words Mos Yumas are written by someone who hits his mother, and so instead of saying it's strangulation, instead you should say it's stoning. He says I wouldn't do that. Why? Because when I have the pasuk written by hitting a father and mother, I have the words Mos Yumas written, so I can either compare that to Ovi Adoni and say it's skila, or I could compare it to Eishes Ish, which we just established is strangulation. So if I'm given that choice, I'm always going to choose strangulation because that's the easier punishment. So therefore, I would not. It is not a problem to learn from Mos Yumas because I would know not to change the halacha Maka Avivimo from chenek to skila, because when given a choice, you'll always choose the more kal one. So the Gemara says, Amrlei Sharnis Haniskolan Gufayu Kokashale. So he's saying no. That's exactly the problem. Because he says if you're learning from the words Mos Yumas, then in every case, let's take any of the cases we learn now from Ovi Adoni, you should say the words say Mos Yumas. So you say, well, okay, fine. So it's written Mos Yumas by Eishes Ish, and it's written Mos Yumas by Ovi Adoni. By Eishes Ish, we know it's strangulation. By Ovi Adoni, we know it's stoning. And you always pick the lighter punishment. So that's the problem, is that in every case you're faced with this choice: do you learn from Eishes Ish or Ovi Adoni? And really, you should learn from Eishes Ish. So that was Reb Zera's problem. So how is it solved if you learn from Demei and Bum? Because the words Demei and Bum are not written in Ish. We just dealt that pasuk before. It didn't have Demei and Bum. So therefore, if your limud from Ovi Adoni is from the words Demei and Bum, so then you learn out to all those cases, which we're going to learn in Mir Tashem about how you learn from Demei and Bum. So then it's fine. But if you're learning it out from Mos Yumas, then you have a problem, because you know that Eishes Ish is only strangulation and Ovi Adoni is skila. You would learn out from Eishes Ish instead of learning from Ovi Adoni. So that was Reb Zera's problem, and therefore he was happy with the answer that the source for learning from Ovi Adoni is the Demei and Bum, in which case That's a straight comparison, and there's no confusion with Eishes Ish. Okay, Mishnah Nun Gimel Amud Aleph. Elu Hinan Eskalin. So we've now outlined how you do all of the forms of Misa, and we're now going to break it down who gets what forms of Misa. So we're going to deal with people who get skila. The Mishnah has 18 cases. Someone has a relationship with his mother. Or the wife of his father who's not his mother. We'll get into that in a minute. Someone who has a relationship, illicit relationship with his daughter. Someone who commits an act of homosexuality. Someone who commits an act of bestiality. That if a woman commits an act of bestiality, someone who is blasphemes Hashem or curses Hashem, someone who does avodah zarah, someone who puts his children. Molech was a form of service where they would someone would take their children and put it through over a fire. Rashi points out that this mission is obviously going according to the view that it's not a form of avodah zarah. It was just a dark amori. It was a pagan practice of some sort. Because otherwise, if Molech was in fact avodah zarah, it would have been covered by the category we just said, avodas kochav. Okay, so technical detail. Ubal ovi yadoni, someone who, as we referenced before, seeks to communicate with the dead. B'machalas haShabbos, someone who is machal Shabbos is chayiv skila. B'makalo of v'imo, someone who curses his father and mother. Rashi points out, and this has many implications. But what Rashi points out, it's interesting that someone who curses his mother and father is a harsher punishment of skila than someone who hits his mother and father, because someone who hits his mother and father only gets strangulation. But they've also used Hashem's name, Hashem, and the double 12 and a half, who gets another person to perform a someone who and we talked about who is who does sorcery or magic. Ben Sora Mora Ben Sanhedrin is someone who has shown that he's going down a bad way, therefore he gets killed even before he does all of those. So we're going to start to analyze them. To bring two chatos, he would have skila. Okay, the Tanakama of our Mishnah holds that if someone wedlock, meaning was also the lawfully wedded wife of his father, he is chayav only one. Which relationship with his mother? He does not. He is not chayav for the relationship with the wife of his father. Okay. Mean which would mean someone that is, as Rashi points out, relations with his mother and chayav for relations with his father's wife. Now Tosas points out, but I think that would just confuse us. So with the Mishnah left it assumes, Tosas says, assume that the father's mother after the father died, and he violates both the prohibition on relations with his mother and the prohibition on relations. Okay, so and Rabbi Yehuda said to that, no, he's only violating on relation, not on the prohibition on relations with his father's wife. Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer. So in the Bryce it says something different. It says that Rabbi Yehuda says, Im lo yehoisa ima ru'uya la'aviv einu chayav elo mishum ha'ein bovad. So in our Mishnah we said, no matter what, if someone has relations with his mother, if someone has relations with his mother, he's only over on that relationship, not with the wife of his father. The Brisa here seems to be saying that when is he only over, is he only violate the restriction on his mother but not on his father's wife, is if his father was married to this woman inappropriately. In that case, he's not chayav for his father's wife, only for his mother. So the Gemara says, well, let's analyze this, right? My Enaruyalo, what does that mean that he was not supposed to marry her? If you're saying that he was married to a woman that he's totally not allowed to marry, for example, let's say his sister, right? So Mechlal, so then that's what's the problem with that Mechlal the Rabbanan. So if that's what Rabbi Yehuda is saying, that if someone's married to his sister and has this child, that the child is only over for the relationship with the mother, but not for the wife of the father. Mechlal the Rabbanan Sabda in Ruyalo. That you're saying that so then the Rabbanan who argue Rabbi Yehuda and say that he's chayav for both, would you possibly suggest that if someone's father married a woman he wasn't allowed to marry, that she should be over on marrying his father's wife? That doesn't make sense because halas like kedushin begava. But that doesn't make sense because you cannot hold the person accountable for having a relationship with his father's wife if the woman was not his wife. If kedushin doesn't work, if kedushin is not tofes, you can't call it his wife. So the Gemara says, so it can't be talking about chayve mises bezin or chayve krisus, but rather ela chayve lavin. It must be talking about if his father was married to this woman in a way that was over on Allah. For example, Rashi says that his father married a mamzer or a nisin, or was a Kohen who married someone he shouldn't have married. Those are chayve lavin. Rabbi Yehuda savarlak Rabbi Akiva da'idushin tovsin b'chayve lavin. And Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rabbi Akiva, who says that kiddushin are not tofes b'chayve lavin, and so therefore that's the reason that Rabbi Yehuda is saying that according to this view, that he's only. The reason he's only chayav for his mother, but not for his wife of his father, is because Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rabbi Akiva that in fact that chayve lavin, let's say someone marrying a mamzer, is just like someone marrying his sister. Kiddushin is not tofes. If the kiddushin is not tofes, you can't say that this woman is his father's wife. If the woman is not the father's wife, then he can't be held liable for having a relationship with his father's wife, and therefore it's only he's only over on the prohibition of being married to his mother, of having a relationship with his mother, but not with his father's wife. Okay, so that is the Brisa, the understanding of Rabbi Yehuda and the Brisa. So what's the difference in the Mishnah? The Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda says, a person who has a relationship with his mother, who's a lawfully wedded wife of, who whether lawfully wedded or non or chayve lavin wedded, is only chayav for relationship with his mother, but not for wife of his father. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda of the Brisa says that when is he only over on his mother is if his mother and father weren't lawfully wedded, which is the reason that he can't be over on having a relationship with his mother's wife. Okay, so that's the difference between the Brisa and the Mishnah. Now, the Mishnah, the Gemara is going to get into a side topic of trying to figure out, is it true that Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rabbi Akiva? Because to understand this Brisa, we said that Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rabbi Akiva, and now we're going to say maybe that's not true. So Maser Rav Yoshi or Maser Rav Shaya asks as follows: Isser mitzvah, Isser kedusha, choltos v'lo mitzvah. Okay, so let's take a minute to explain this. Remember from our so we know that if a man dies and he doesn't have children, his brother marries his wife, and if he, which would be yibum, and if not, he does chalitza. Now, let's say someone is married to someone that the yavama cannot fault him. So, for example, let's say there's two brothers, one of whom marries the daughter of his brother, so marries his niece, which actually is something the Torah encourages. It's not a problem. So they marries the niece, right? And so that's a perfectly valid marriage. But what happens? The brother who is married to the niece now dies, and so his brother's supposed to do yibum. But who's the wife of his brother is his own daughter. So he's not allowed to be married to his daughter. So therefore he can't do yibum, and because he can't do yibum, and there's no question of yibum, he's not even relevant to chalitza, nothing doing. So that if an erva falls to a yavam, then that's not yibum, no chalitza. However, there is a case where someone, a yavama, can fall to someone who it's not a chayve krisus. It's not a case where it's not a case like that, but rather it's a case where there's only an isser drabanan for them to get married. So in which case, minat Torah, you could do yibum, but midrabanan, they're not allowed to get married. So therefore, we don't want them to yibum because they're not allowed to get married midrabanan. But we can't say that she could go free to the world because minat Torah, they should have done yibum or chalitza. So therefore, we force there to be chalitza. So we're saying there's two cases, isser mitzvah and isser kedusha, which are do chalitza, not yibum, because it's only the rabbanon. We'll explain what those are in a minute. Amud Beis, isser mitzvah, shnios midivrei sofrim. So what does it mean when it says isser mitzvah? It's talking about the shnios, which the chachamim put in, which were basically people who are similar to the Torah's ervas. So what is a good example? The classic case of a shnia would be for someone to marry his grandmother. It doesn't say in the Torah you can't do that, but Chazal said you shouldn't marry your grandmother. So that's a shnia, a secondary erva, which is only the rabbanon. So therefore, if someone's brother, and they do not share a mother, someone's brother married his brother's maternal grandmother, and then the maternal grandmother fell to the person as a yavama. So the problem is minat Torah, they're allowed to get married. So you should have to do yibum or chalitza, but midrabanan they're not allowed to get married. So therefore we say you do chalitza, you don't do yibum. Okay, so that's the Tana says this. The Gemara interjects and says, "Amai kari lahu isser mitzvah." Why do you call it isser mitzvah? Shemitzvah l'shmo divrei chachamim, because this is something that chachamim put into place. It's a mitzvah to listen to chachamim, so that's why we call it isser mitzvah. It's an isser that comes through the mitzvah of listening to Chazal. Okay, so that's one case where we do chalitza and not yibum. Isser kedusha. What about isser kedusha? Is a case of almana l'kohen gadol, grusha v'chalutza l'kohen hedyot. That if you have someone is married to a woman and he dies, and the wife falls to the kohen gadol, she's by that an almana. A kohen gadol is not allowed to marry an almana. Minat Torah. So therefore, we say that is an isser lav. Now you might ask. I said before that both cases we're talking about a drabanan. The isser of an almana to kohen gadol is a deraisa. So why did I say that? As Rashi points out, because in reality, though, you would say that you should do yibum. You could do yibum anyway. Why? Because essay dochalosa, say a positive commandment negates a negative commandment. So there's a negative commandment that a kohen gadol should not marry an almana, that he should do yibum. So minat Torah, you would say essay dochalosa say. But why did Chazal not want them to do it? Because as we've encountered actually earlier in this Masechta in a different context, but the idea is that when you have an essay dochalosa say, is only would forgive the first act of bia. So that when they do bia, he does the mitzvah of yibum. At that point, he no longer has a mitzvah to be married to this woman, and yet he's the kohen gadol, he'd be married to an almana. So Chazal said, we'd rather he not do yibum because we're afraid that if they do bia rishona, they'll do bia shnia. It ends up only, even though the isser almana l'kohen gadol, the deraisa, it's only because Rabbanan didn't want to apply essay dochalosa say. So the reason he's not supposed to do yibum is midrabanan. So in both cases midrabanan, and therefore you have to do chalitza. You can't say it's like a regular case of erva because where there's no need for chalitza, because in this case it's only erva midrabanan.
So that's a case of Isser Kedusha. Why do they call it Isser Kedusha? The Kedoshim Gilu that the Kohanim should be kadosh to their God, so that you call matters of Kohuna getting married Isser Kedusha. Okay, Vitanya Allah, we learned on this. Rabbi Yehuda switched it and said no, that when you're dealing with things like Shniyos, the Kedusha, and when you're dealing with things like Kohen Gadol, Aman al Kohen Gadol, you're dealing with mitzvah. Why? Because he says that why do we call it Kedusha when it's the Shniyos, like for example that someone shouldn't marry his grandmother, is because Rashi says Kadesh Atzmo Mutter Lach, that you should make a siyag, you should do something to be careful they don't get messed up. So since grandmother is similar to the other things, we say you shouldn't do it. It's a siyag. Kadesh atzma b'mutar. You should sanctify yourself with something that's permitted to you and make it impermissible to you. So that's why it's kedusha. And mitzvah is because Rashi says, because at the end of Sefer Vayikra, when you finish all the mitzvahs of kahuna, it says Elah ha-mitzvahs. So that's he calls it Isser mitzvah. So what do we have? We have the Rabbi Yehuda came on a very technical level. He said, okay, we have this brisa that says by these D'Rabbanan Dika relationships, which he falls to Yibum, since D'Rabbanan we don't want him to do Yibum, they do Chalitza. And they called it Isser Mitzvah and Isser Kedusha. And the Tana explained, why do we call it each one? And Rabbi Yehuda said, no, come switch it. Rabbi Yehuda was not arguing on the basic halacha, right? He was just talking about why it is. So he said, Rabbi Yehuda, so we said all he's doing is he's switching which case you call Isser Kedusha and which you call Isser Mitzvah. Ha-chalitza bai, but at the end of the day, he agrees with the basic halacha that you need chalitza. What's the problem with that? Because we just finished saying that Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rabbi Akiva that Kiddushin is not tofes by Chayvei Lavin. That Kiddushin doesn't work when someone is just usher by Lav, but not by Kare. So he says, V'isal Kedaitach. And if you're going to say that Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Akiva, that Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rabbi Akiva, that Chayvei Lavin Kedusha is not tofes. Michti, let's see, Chayvei Lavin and Rabbi Akiva, ki Chayvei Krisis dummy. That Chayvei Lavin, according to Rabbi Akiva, are just like Chayvei Krisis, and Kedushin doesn't take effect. And so, like I said before, the Chayvei Krisis Lav b'nei Chalitza v'yibum ninu, and Chayvei Krisis are not b'nei Chalitza and yibum. So where a person fell, where he felt that his mother, who is the lawfully wedded wife of his father, he's only chayav for the relationship with his mother, according to Rabbi Yehuda. That's what our Mishnah said. Yasser Yitzchak Tani Kedisnan Rabbi Yehuda. Tani Kedisnan. That when Rabbi Yitzchak came, he learned which is what Rabbi Yehuda Amar. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Ein chayav el mishum ein bovad." For relations with his mother, but not for relations with his father's wife. Okay, so we've now resolved, according to Rabbi Yitzchak, that we go with the brisa. So now the rest of the Gemara is going to try and figure out what is the reason that Rabbi Yehuda says that he's only chayav for his mother but not for his father's wife. The time Amai, what's that reason? Amar Abai says, the Amar Kra, the pasuk says, Imcha hi mishum okay, so he says as follows, that the pasuk there's two psukim written by a father a father and his wife, which is as follows. The pasuk in Vayikra, pasuk Zion says, Ervas avicha The erva of your father, ve'ervas imcha, and the erva of your mother, lo segala, you should not uncover. Imcha he, she is your mother. Focus on those words. Lo segala erva sa, do not reveal her erva. So this is the pasuk that's written by someone. The next pasuk says, ervas eshes avicha lo segala, that the erva of the wife of your father you should not uncover. Ervas avicha hu, it is the erva of your father, right? So there, it's talking about someone who is married to the father. It's not discussing whether it's his mother. Okay, so we say so he says the issue is as follows: that when it says ervas avicha ve'ervas imcha lo segala, so it says you should not uncover your mother. Imcha he, she is your mother. That is an exclusion to say when someone has relation. Imcha only is over the isser of his mother, but not the isser of the wife of his father. So the Gemara says, well, if that's the drasha, which I read, says that the erva of the wife of your father you should not uncover. It is the erva of your father. So when it says it is the erva of your father, so that seems to be saying that that is only chayav for the wife of his father, but not for the relationship with his mother. They're saying imcha he, only for the mother. Then why not say ervas avicha who? That tells you only the wife of the father. So in other words, you have conflicting things. Ela imo shehi eshes aviv kayhacha umayit loy v'kayhacha umayit lo. So he says, but here's the problem. So you're going to end up with a drasha as follows: that one drasha tells you you're only chayav for your mother, but not for your father's wife. And the other one says you only chayav for your father's wife, but not for your mother. So we could say, okay, those are each case. One is talking where he was married, and one was talking where he wasn't married. Right? So there's one was wedlock, one was legitimately married. So you're covering both cases. But the problem is, if you have these conflicting limudim, what happens in the case where it is his mother and it's the wife of his father? So we're going to end up with a case. Hashta imo she'eno eshes aviv. I'm sorry. So he says, Hashta imo she'eno eshes aviv. If it's his mother who's not, meaning he was born out of wedlock, and it's not the wife of his father, mechayev is chayev. Eshes aviv she'eno imo, or it's a wife of his father who's not his mother, also mechayev. But imo, in the case of his mother, shehi eshes aviv, that's all cloud, then he wouldn't be chayav at all. So that's a bizarre result. So if you have one pasuk that tells you when it's only mother, but not wife of father, and only wife of father but not mother, each of those cases is chayav. But a case where it says mother and the wife, you're not chayav. So that can't be. So it must be that an eretz avicha who are not the reason to do it. And that there's a second question: moreover, if you're learning it from imcha, that kind of drasha, what are the Rabbanon who argue on Rabbi Yehuda? Why wouldn't they use it? Ella hahumi bailei l'cherdushisha breder Rav Idi. Rabbi Yehuda nami hahumi bailei l'cherdushisha breder Rav Idi. So tomorrow, Mir Hashem, we'll see what the halacha is of Rav Shisha breder Rav Idi. It talks about whether how you know an onesh for someone who has a relationship with his mother. But in any event, so we're going to say what would the Rabbanon do with imchahi? They must use it for that limud. Rabbi Yehuda needs it for that limud also. So we have a double question. Abaya's answer about how we know it, so we're going to say no, it's not that. Elo Amar Ravacha Breder Ika Amar Kra Ervasa Mishom Erva Achas Atam Chayv V'Yatam Chayv Mishtei Ervos. So he says as follows: that the pasuk says by his mother, Ervas Avicha ve'Ervas Imcha Lo Segala. You shouldn't uncover the erva of your mother. Imcha he your mother. Lo Segala Ervasa. You should not uncover her erva. So what does this tell you? This tells you that when the pasuk comes to tell you that you could be chayav having a relation with your mother, erva sa, her erva singular, tells you that you can only be chayav for one isser, and therefore you're chayav on the isser of mother, but not wife of father, because only one erva is allowed. So the Gemara says, Elameata, if that's true, erva sa in singular tells you can only be chayav for one erva. I have a problem with our Mishnah, because ervas kalascha lo segala eshes bincha hi lo segala ervasa. The pasuk by daughter-in-law says you should not uncover the erva of your daughter-in-law. She is the wife of your son. You should not cover ervasa, her erva, in the singular. So according to your limud, you should say that she can only be chayav for one erva, not two, right? But what's the problem with that? Now we learned in our Mishnah, Habal Kalaso, someone who comes on his daughter-in-law, Chayv Ala Mishum Kalaso, he's Chayv for his daughter-in-law, Mishum Eshes Ish, and for the wife of his son. So what do you see? You see that a man who comes on his daughter-in-law is Chayv two ervas, even though it says ervasa, the singular. So it must be that this limud is not good. Below Palag Rabbi Yehuda, you didn't see Rabbi Yehuda come and argue there and say, no, he's only Chayv for his daughter-in-law, but not Eshes Ish because it's written ervasa. Ella, how would you explain the word ervasa in the case of daughter-in-law? Kigon the Chad Gufahu, Afagat the Trey Isura Ninu, Ksiv ervasa. The reason it wrote ervasa singular is because we're talking about one person. We might be talking about two isurim, but we say at the end of the day, ervasa, it is her erva, meaning because it's only one person. So hachanami, therefore here too, you can't learn from ervasa because we're going to say that the reason it's written ervasa is given the Chad Gufahu, Afagat the Trey Isura Ninu, Ksiv ervasa, because you're going to say the reason it's written is because it's written ervasa is just because it's a singular person with two isurim. So I think we're going to stop here because the next teretz is a little more complicated. I tried starting 5 minutes early today. We had our technical difficulties, so I'll send around the WhatsApp. We'll probably start a few minutes early tomorrow because this will take a couple minutes to explain, and then I'll let you know what time we're starting tomorrow. I thought about it twice.